Next up, we have our next B talk from Luke Browne, and he is going to be walking us through Chocó Forest Watch, which is a free open source web application designed to lower the technical barriers to high resolution deforestation and land use monitoring for conservationists. So you're already ahead of me. Take it away, Luke, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Alex, and thanks, Jake and Wild Labs, for the invite to come talk about Chocó Forest Watch, which is a project I'm working on in collaboration with FCAT, which is I'll talk more about later. So I'm going to start with place because this is very much a place-based project, and then I'll talk about the technology. And so this is all really developed to focus on the western forests of Ecuador, the Chocó Forest of Ecuador, which over the past century or so has really been totally fragmented and devastated from a conservation point of view. We're only about 5% of the forest cover remains by some estimates. And you end up with a landscape like this with tons of fragmentations, a few patches of forest driven by a lot of agricultural expansion from cacao or palm oil or farmers who are really just trying to make a living and support their families. And so that's where FCAT comes in. FCAT is an NGO based in Ecuador. We're community based. Most of our members are members of the local community. We work really hard to try to come up with solutions that improve local well-being and also have good outcomes for nature. And we have sort of three prongs. One is scientific research. One is capacity building of both local communities and also international researchers and students. And then also a big community engagement program with youth education and supporting women. And I wanted to make this plug because I think this is a good audience for this. We run a 750 hectare reserve in Western Ecuador with the field station. So if you have some sort of product or technology or approach that you want to test out, we don't have cheetahs, but we have a lot of other cool stuff there that this is, I'd be happy to chat and see if we could work together on testing out stuff in the field in challenging conditions. So it makes a good test bed for that. So why do we care about forest monitoring? Hopefully I don't need to motivate this too much for this crowd, but I do want to just make the case that at least for FCAT, what we're interested in is conservation planning. We're doing a big biodiversity corridor project, and we're looking for areas where we can target restoration and conservation. Also, increasingly, it's becoming important for deforestation-free products and marketing, like the EUDR, and also the carbon markets for validation and monitoring. And then also, we're interested in the scientific impacts on biodiversity. So having an underlying forest cover map is super important for all those things. And so when we go out to look for forest cover maps of Western Ecuador, this is sort of what we're dealing with, where this part of the world is super humid and wet and just covered in clouds most of the time. And so we've just over the past decade or so have had a lot of trouble getting reliable maps of forest cover until a few years ago where Planet came out with their satellite array. And we started seeing these much clearer images of the sort of zone that we're working in. And then the other sort of amazing development was this NICFI program where they made this imagery freely available to everyone across the tropics in sort of monthly mosaics. So we saw this as a huge opportunity for us because, we're interested in a pretty small area and we're finally getting clear imagery. And so we didn't do anything sort of revolutionary in terms of the analytics here, but basically what we did is we went through and built our own land classification model of drawing polygons of where there's forest, not forest, fitting an XGBoost machine learning model, and then doing change over time analysis. And what we found is we were finally able to see the FCAT reserve is the orange outline in the middle. We were finally able to see like really high quality forest cover maps of the area that we're interested in, and also detect deforestation events at a spatial resolution that we've never been able to see before. And what we found is that when we compare this to other sort of global benchmarks like the Global Forest Watch deforestation alerts, which I love Global Forest Watch, and they just suffer from a lot of problems in this area because of the trade-offs between having a global model that works everywhere versus having a more regional or localized approach. Is that we're finding deforestation estimates about 7 times higher than what's being reported, and that matches what we see in the field where deforestation is still rampant. So that was sort of the birth of the idea of Chocó Forest Watch, which is a web application, interactive web application, and also a machine learning pipeline to scale this high-resolution forest monitoring across Western Ecuador, and also detect deforestation hotspots like this at a 4.7 meter resolution using this planet imagery. And so who is this for? I mean, all the underlying code is all open source. So everyone, the conservation technology community is definitely some of the stakeholders, but more specifically, we're part of the Chocó Alliance, which is a network of 13 NGOs in Western Ecuador that manage about 35,000 hectares. And this tool is really developed for us to keep track and monitoring our own reserves. And also, I want to thank all the support that we've gotten from different initiatives, including Global Forest Watch. So normally we don't get a chance to talk about the sort of nerdy tech stuff at talks like this, but I do just want to mention the tech stack involved here, a Vue front end, a Django backend. And since the NICFI Planet contract ended a few months ago, we've had to sort of pivot big time to host our own imagery. And so streaming in that imagery using Tyler. And also wanted to mention the challenges if you're not familiar, this contract between Planet and NICFI ended. And so our access to the imagery was interrupted. And then the technical complexity of going from something like a Python script to a whole front end, back end web application is not a trivial process, but we're sort of living in a really amazing time of AI assisted coding that really reduces that barrier to entry. So in terms of how this is performing, these are all sort of preliminary results, but what we're seeing is that the Chocó Forest Watch R composite map is in the green compared to other sort of global tree cover, forest cover benchmarks. It has a higher accuracy than the other ones, and you see the same thing with like F1 scores, and an increased spatial resolution, which is key too for planning. And one interesting thing is if we compare it to the WRI tree cover and the second one, the accuracy is very close, within 0.3%. But when you go to look at the actual data in this area that we're interested in, you see these big gaps, right? These sort of blocks of missing data. So even the accuracy is similar. What we're able to do is sort of fill in those gaps. And when you're, a nonprofit or doing on-the-ground conservation at small spatial scales, and your reserve or whatever falls within one of those gaps, that's a problem, obviously. And then that's the problem that we're trying to solve with Chocó Forest Watch. So with that, thank you. I'd love to hear from anyone or connect after too.
Thank you so much for that talk. We've got some comments in the chat, mostly just congratulating you on doing cool work. I guess same question for you. Like what makes you most excited for like the future of this work? Like, yeah, that's my question. Like, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, I think, I was a little bit inspired by Amir, like the multi-sensor fusion stuff is interesting to me. That's not something that we've integrated into this, but the idea that we could have, like RGB imagery on top of something like radar that can penetrate through the clouds to detect deforestation and sort of fusing different types of sensors at different spatial resolutions. That's not a step that we've taken yet, but that sort of thing I think has some potential.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a subtle forest theme of today's of today's variety hour, which is exciting. At least I think so, based on my understanding of what these talks are. So thank you so much for getting that started.